I'm Brad Phillips. I'm here with Puppy Steps Training, and today we have Augie in the crate with us. We're going to be doing his demonstration. We're very excited to send him to you, as I'm sure that you are super excited to have him. He's just a super sweet dog. We've really enjoyed training him, and I think you guys are going to love to have him part of the family. So today, like I said, we are going to be doing a full demonstration. So I'm going to talk just briefly about what to expect, as well as just how to continue with the training. And then we'll talk briefly about socialization. I'll pull him out and we'll go over his manners, his obedience commands, his crate training, house training, and leash training. But like I said, before we do that, I just want to talk briefly. And first and foremost, I'd just like to remind everybody that he is still a puppy. And so there is going to be a lot of growing, a lot of maturing. There's going to be times that he tries to test the waters and sees what he can get away with. And it's just important for you to remember that consistency is the key. Consistency is the key to all dog training. And if you can be consistent in rewarding him as well as correcting him, giving him that necessary information when required, this training will slide right over and you'll have a wonderful dog and he'll live up to your expectations. But it's important to remember when you're going to reward him, so when he does a correct behavior, we use OK. That is our marker and our release word. So it marks the correct behavior, releases from a state. He knows that when he hears that word, that there is some type of reward coming. Now we do use 3 types of rewards. We use food, compassion, and toys. Food is always going to be your most powerful, and so just remember that. Anytime that he does something correctly, you use the word OK to mark it and reward him. On the other hand, if he does something bad, our correction is no or nope, and I treat that somewhat like a misdemeanor felony type of deal. Regardless, if he does something wrong, he's going to get corrected, but the severity of the correction comes from the behavior. So if he does something like breaks a stay, I'm just going to tell him no and I'll have him do it again. It's important that you always end on a correct behavior, so always have him do it again. Whereas if he did something a little bit more serious, like try to jump up on me or steal food, I would use a more firm tone of voice and I would adjust my body language. Voice fluctuation and body language are 2 factors that dogs pick up on really well, as well as your emotions, so you can deliver a meaningful command without getting physical. Now we do have one physical correction that we use, and that's a leash correction, and it's just 2 pops on the leash. You're not trying to yank him backwards, it's just more so for attention. And we use that when we are on walks and maybe they start to pull, as well as if I have a hold of the leash and they try to jump up on anyone. So, yeah, so now socialization. To me, that's the most important thing we do with any dog, and we do that the first 2 weeks that we have them. We make sure to get them into some new environments, around new people, sounds, textures, animals, just a variety of different things. And that way we can control whether there's any severe anxiety, timid or aggressive behaviors. And if any of those behaviors do arise, we can take care of them. As well as if the dog just shows like a little bit of discomfort, we can make sure that it is then a positive experience by focusing on what we call as engagement. And so what that is if I saw him, maybe his head ducked or his tail ducked, I would invite him over, have him sit in front of me, and I'm just going to go to his level. I'll pet him, I'll reward him, give him a treat, and I'll just make sure that he feels comfortable, and that what could be a negative experience turns into a positive, and that reward and that positive experience is coming from me. And that way, like I said, you're just not going to develop any of those severe anxiety, timid, or aggressive behaviors. So with that, now we'll move into his manners. So for the manners, the first one I'm going to show you is his gates and his doorways. And so anytime he comes out of the crate, goes through a house door, I expect him to hold a stay. Should be an automatic behavior. But once again, he is still a puppy, and so if he were to break, I might simply close the door, lift up my leg and block him. It wouldn't be unless he was really persistent on pushing his way out that I'd actually tell him to stay. So I'm going to let him out now. I'm also going to hook a leash on him, and that way if I did need a quick correction or a quick way to grab him, I could grab the leash. And I would recommend letting him drag around the leash for the first 2 weeks. Okay, good boy, okay. And like I said, I'll hook this leash on. Good boy. Good boy. And so now I'm going to show you his greeting. And so that's somewhat what he's doing right here. He's still a little bit of ways away from me though. And what that is anytime I call him to me or I invite him over, I expect him to sit as soon as he approaches me. This also should be an automatic behavior. And this does a couple things. First, it gets his eye contact, so that way I have 100% of his attention. Second, it's a replacement behavior, so he's not trying to jump up and get my attention. Instead, he knows that if he sits down, I'm going to greet him. Come here, Auggie. No, come here. Unless he tries to guess what we're doing. Come here, bud. Good boy. Okay, good boy. So then I'll go down and I'll pet him and I'll greet him once he performs that. Oh, good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Next, I'll show you his mealtime manners. And so anytime we feed him, I expect him to hold a sit stay. So where he's sitting on his bed, I'll just ask him to stay. Okay, good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Now we also spend a lot of time handling him when he eats, making sure that there's no aggression over me being right here in his food bowl. Sometimes I'll even throw treats in his bowl. Just want to make sure that it's very positive having me around and that he's not going to growl or nip at anyone if he's eating. So there's no food aggression. He's also alright if I take his bowl away, and that way I can also ask him to do another stay. Stay. No. Okay, good boy. Good boy. We also just make a habit of handling him in general. His paws, that way we can clip nails, his ears, his tail, brushing him, making sure he's going to be alright with being groomed. And I don't want him to be aggressive or antsy about me handling him at all. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Also, that would kind of show way of any aggression that he has. Haven't seen any. He's very sweet. Good boy. And sometimes playful behavior can be mistaken for aggression, especially with small children, because they're like the greatest thing to a dog. They run, they squeal, everything's a lot of fun, and your dog wants to play along, they end up knocking him over or grabbing a pant leg, and then you have issues. So instead, I make a rule that anytime kids play with my dog, they have to have a toy. That way, if they're running, it gives him something to go after, as well as if you got a kid that's maybe a little nervous around dogs, they can then throw the toy and direct him away. Come on. Good boy. And he loves to play. Good boy. Good boy. Come here. And he also knows the command, drop it. Drop it. Good boy. Good boy. And he should freely give that up. I shouldn't have to yank it out or try and pull it away from him. He should just give it up. And there's a couple different ways that we work on it. One, come here, is I can have a hold of it. Come here. Yeah, good boy, like if you're playing tug or anything like that. And then just ask him, there you go, grab one, drop it. Good boy. To just let go of it. Good boy. The other way is you can just ask him to drop it on the ground. Drop it. Auggie, drop it. Good boy. And expect him to drop it and leave it. That way you can remove it. So, if he ever didn't want to give anything up, I would just take a hold of it and hold it real still. A lot of times just that makes it unappealing. They can't pull it around and play with it. And so they'll just drop it because of that. If it's long enough, like a bully stick, I can take both sides. And that way if he's still trying to pull, I can just tilt my knuckles inward and pinch his lips against his canines, making it just uncomfortable. And if you really didn't want to give something up, you can just slip your thumb right behind his canines and push on his tongue, like this. And he's going to open his mouth as wide as he can, just because you're applying pressure on his tongue. So, good boy. He's very good with that. We've also taught him a command just to be gentle in general, especially when you're giving him food. And so if he got a little excited, I could just tell him gently. And I expect him to be very cautious when he takes food out of my hand. I'll also always give it in the palm of my hand, that way he's not biting over my fingers. And if he were to rear up and try and grab it, I would just pull it back, tell him gently, and expect him to be very cautious. Which he's very sweet, he has a very soft mouth, so you don't have to worry too much there. Good boy. Good boy. Now, the next two manners are things that you do have to set a standard with him. And the first one is jumping. And so jumping is a huge behavior in puppies. It takes a lot to overcome it. And a lot of it comes down to them building some respect for you. And so we have taught him the command off, and that's if he tries to jump up on me or another person, as well as if he wants to jump up on the couch or on anything like that. So I'll tell him off and expect him to get down. Now it's also important that if he was running towards me, you can never step backwards. Especially, I mean, if you think the dog's going to jump and you start going backwards, it turns into a game, basically a game of chase, and they're going to try and come a little bit faster, and it's just more inviting. Instead, if they're running towards you and you step into them, first and foremost, that restricts the space, and so it's going to throw off timing. The other thing is that also puts you in a position that if you were to jump, I'm going to bring my knee up into their chest and tell them off. And a lot of times you only have to do that once, and then they get the point, and they're not going to try and jump again. So always step into them, hit them in the chest with your knee and tell them off. But Augie's been really good about that, but if he even tries to jump up on the couch, just tell him off and expect him to get down. That's also a time that if he tries to climb up on something, if you can have a hold of the leash or grab the leash, you can give him those 2 pops. And that's a great exercise you can even do with your kids. If he wants to try and jump up on any of your kids, you can take him by the leash, have them call him over, walk over. If he tries to jump, pop him twice, turn around and walk away. And do that a handful of times. But set that right off the bat. If you let him get away with jumping up on you, he's just going to keep trying to get away with it. So the second one is chewing. And chewing has to happen. It's a behavior that you can't escape. He's still got to lose quite a few of his teeth. And so he's going to be chewing very heavily over the next couple months. And so the best way to prevent a disaster from happening is by avoiding and replacing. If you can avoid giving him free access to shoes, to basically any object you don't want chewed up, that's always the best way to prevent it. However, there's always something he has access to. So that's where replacing comes in. And so if he wanted to chew on maybe a pillow or a soft bed, I would tell him no, and I'd replace it with something like this soft toy. If he wanted to chew on, say, a table leg or something hard, I would tell him no, and I would replace it with something like a bully stick. If he wanted to chew on his leash or a shoelace, give him something more like a rope. But match that texture, because he's chewing based on what he feels his mouth needs. So if you can replace with that texture, you can take care of a lot of those needs. But also just giving him things to chew on randomly throughout the day is also good and controls that. The big thing, though, that causes destructive behaviors is boredom. And that can also be tied to lack of exercise as well. But if he's bored, he's going to go find something to chew on. So in my house, anytime that we have a downtime, whether we're reading a book or watching a show, I'll just give my dog something to chew on. That way they're not going to go search. But then, if they get up and leave, like where I gave him this duck, if he just got up and left, I would take it away. And he no longer has access to that till I give it back. And that way he doesn't get bored with his own objects. If he always has access to them, they get mundane and he goes and finds something new. So you can give him something to chew on. So yeah, I'm double check, but I think that's all of our manners. And so now we're going to move into our obedience commands. And I'm going to start with showing you our 2 most basic commands, which are come and watch me. And then I'll show you hand signals for sit, down, and stay. And I'll show you both of his sit and down stay. And then I'll show you his place commands, crate, go to bed, and then leave it. So first I'm going to take away his toy. Maybe I should have left it with him. I'm going to try and distract him a little bit. Watch me. Okay, good boy. So that command, all I'm looking for is eye contact. As soon as I get his eye contact, I know that I have his attention. And so it's very basic, something that I do always use food with, because I want that to be a positive association, as well as it's one you can just throw in randomly. Watch me. Okay, good boy. And I'll just wait for him to look up. Now I treat his name the same way, as well as I use it with come, because I want him to make eye contact with me, or at least break focus from whatever's distracting him, and then deliver that come command. Auggie, come! Okay, good boy. I'm not going to wait for him to sit. I'm just going to immediately reward the behavior of him coming to me. It's hard to show in here because we don't have a lot of space, but we spend a lot of time on that command, and it's definitely your most important command that you have. Auggie, come! Okay, good boy. And so I like to keep that command very positive. I like to use food a lot with it, and I like to work on it more than I use it. If you always have a positive association and you really grind it in, then when you really need that command, it's going to be in place. So the best way to work on it is I start with a long lead, and I'll hook it on him and just go for a walk. I'll let him get out and explore, run around, and then every few minutes I'll call him to come just to give him a treat and let him go again. That way it stays positive. He gets to be a dog and run around, but he also gets work on that come command. And after he's performing that wonderfully for you, then you can let him off leash and do the same thing. But I want to make sure that before I let him off leash, especially in somewhere that he could get into trouble, that he's responding to me to that come command. Also, the other reason I see it killed so often is overuse. And so if you're in the house, you're 3 feet away, you really don't need to use the come command. Instead I can, come here, something like that, he's going to get up and come to me. Good boy, huh? Yeah, good boy. So now our hand signals. So the first one is a sit command. It's just a scoop over the nose. Just that simple, right there. Down, I'll take my hand flat and I'll take him to the ground, and then stay as a stop sign. Like I said, we do have both a sit and a down stay. So I'm going to pull him off his bed here. Come here. And I'll ask him to sit. Down. Stay. Now if he's in a down stay, he's not allowed to come up. However, if he's in a sit stay, I don't care if he lays down. Okay, good boy, good boy. And then the sit stay is sit, stay. Okay, good boy. Okay, good boy. I'll let him find those treats. Now he has great puppy stays, but I always strive to improve them. We add what we call the 3 Ds, and that's distance, duration, distraction. Now I'm not sure if he hit the bell because he was looking for that treat or not, so come here. So I'm actually going to have him ring it again, just in case, and then we'll cover his house training here in a minute. Okay, outside, good boy. Wait, no. Okay, good boy. Okay. Like I said, I'm not sure if he hit that, whether he was just looking for that treat or he actually needed to go, but it's better safe than sorry. And so I'll also explain all that here in just a few minutes. But before that, so we'll show you his place commands now. So that's crate and go to bed. And so for crate, I'll just, come here. Crate. Good boy. I'll give him the treat when he goes in, because sometimes you will close that door. Okay, good boy, okay. Now the crate command I do like to work on a lot, just like that come command, because if you only use it when you're going to lock him up, pretty soon he's not going to want to go in. So instead, if you can keep it variable and use it throughout the day, just to put him in, give him a treat, let him go again, then that way he doesn't get to the point where he doesn't want to go in. You'll also notice, crate, that I told him okay, didn't immediately come out. I'm not going to sit here and repeat myself till he comes out. He heard the release word, he knows he can come out, and so I'm just going to let him come out on his own time. Okay, good boy. Now very similar, I can tell him to go to bed. Go to bed. Good boy. Now I will give him the treat when he goes on, and he's also expected to stay. And where he hesitated a little bit, I'm going to do it a couple times here in a row. Okay, good boy. Good boy. Go to bed. Good boy. Now both of these commands, I put myself in a position where he can read my body language, and that's more important than necessarily a hand signal, even though pointing could be considered a hand signal. Okay, good boy. Good boy. Go to bed. Good boy. which he loves his bed, and he especially loves it when it's in the sun. He'll lay there for hours. So. Okay, good boy, good boy. Now the next one is leave it. We work on this a lot more when we're on walks, making sure he's not going to pick up any roadkill or stuff that we don't want him to. But to show it in here, I'll drop a treat on the ground, make sure he sees it there, which I don't think he did. And I can just ask him to leave it. Leave it. Good boy, and I expect him to actually walk away from it. Now it's a little bit harder when you're using treats, but I can just apply just a little bit of pressure on the leash and expect him to leave it. Now, we also have been working on it. I don't know if he'll let me. He probably will by the time he goes home here in a week, but we like to do it on his paw and tell him to leave it. No, leave it. Leave it. No, leave it. No. Okay, good boy. Okay. And I'm going to give him a different treat versus the one that was on his paw. Just a fun little thing, but it also works on that command. So now that concludes our obedience portion. Now we're going to talk about crate training and house training for a minute. So the crate, we've spent a lot of time getting him used to the crate, making sure he's not going to have accidents, and he's not going to whine uncontrollably in there. So right now, we put him to bed around 10 and get him out around 6:30. So he's sleeping 8 to 10 hours at night. He's doing wonderful with that, as well as he's good for about 3-hour blocks during the day. Now, with that being said, this transition he's going to go through, so 2 to 4 weeks after you get him home, it's going to cause a lot of stress. And so he's going to have to go to the bathroom more frequently. He's probably going to get a loose stool. And he's just going to be uncomfortable in his environment. And so there's a couple things that may happen. First, as soon as you put him in his crate, he might not might be too happy about it. He might start whining. If he does that, you have to ignore it. You can give him like a bully stick or a marrow bone to chew on, but other than that, you need to ignore it. You can throw a blanket over as well. But if you let him out when he's doing that, he's going to start whining because he thinks he can get out. So ignore that. Should only happen the first day or two. Now the other thing is if he starts whining in the middle of the night, that he might have to go because of that stress, and so it's not a bad idea just to give him a break. And when you do that, just take him out to the bathroom, then put him right back in the crate. I honestly don't think it's a bad idea just to give him a break in the middle of the night, just so you don't have the whining, as well as he's not going to have an accident. But he does great in there. He's just very, very good. Now it's also important, just as we move into the house training, that you control his food and water. So we feed him twice a day. We feed him about 7 o'clock in the morning after we get him out and let him use the bathroom, and then at 6 o'clock at night. I like to be as close to 6 as possible because I want to give him a good 4 hours to clear his system before he goes to bed. And water, I'll give him water with meals and then like 4 other times throughout the day. But I make sure that it's taken away by about 7 o'clock at night, once again, so he can clear his system. So yeah, that'll help with not having accidents in the crate, as well as you're not going to overwhelm his bladder as you transition the house training. So now I'm going to teach you how to transition the bells and how to make sure that you're going to have success there. So now with the house training, I'm going to teach you how I teach the bells. And basically when we do this, I'm going to show you step by step how to make sure that it transitions. And honestly, it's kind of a lot right off the bat, a lot of repetitions. That's our goal, because we want to stay ahead of his pee schedule, as well as I want to make sure that he learns where the bells are at your house. I mean, this really is the most involved for you because we get him as close to 100% as possible here, but then he needs to relearn where the bells are at your house and that they mean the same thing. And so the best way to do this is to get a lot of repetitions real quick. And so we start by just getting him excited to ring the bells, and then we gradually get him off of just getting excited to ring the bells to actually ringing them to go to the bathroom again. And really it works a lot quicker this time because you don't have to go through the full process. And so the best way to do this is first I'm going to target the bells. I'm just going to get him excited about ringing them. And so where he's sitting down, I'm just going to come close to him, and I'm going to hold the bells right out in front of his nose, and I'm going to allow him to touch them. And I'll reward him every time he does. Okay, outside, good boy. Okay, good boy. Okay, good boy. And I don't care how hard he hits him, or even if it takes this long. Okay, good boy. But I want him to basically teach himself. And so he's got to figure out to ring him by himself. I'm not going to force him to. Okay, good boy. It's called free shaping. Okay, good boy. So now once he starts to ring him by himself out of my hand, I'll do the same thing at the door. I'll take him by the leash. Come here. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to sit here and stare at the bells, and I'll reward him every time he touches them. As I'll also start to switch the wording. Okay, good boy. Okay, good boy. And you can move him a little bit closer. Okay, outside, good boy. Okay, outside, good boy. So this time I'm going to take him out. Okay, outside, good boy. Okay. Okay. Now, if I was doing this at your home, I would immediately turn around, have him ring the bells again a couple times, and then take him back out. And I would do that 4 or 5 times, even though he just barely went. And the reason there is just to get a lot of repetitions of him ringing the bell and seeing where we're going. Now, this little exercise does draw a lot of attention to the bells, and so it also prompts him to ring it. And so if he keeps going over here and starts ringing him again, I'll probably take him off the door just so we can finish the demonstration. So when you do take him outside, I'll give him maybe a minute or two to sniff around and to go. If he pees really quick, I'll still give him like another minute just in case he needs to poop. But when I do that, when I walk him around, I'm not giving him any attention. Periodically, I will say the word outside to prompt him to go. And then if he does go, I'll tell him, okay, good outside, good boy, and I'll pet him and give him a treat. Good boy. And then if he doesn't go, I'm not going to say anything, I'm not going to reward him or play, it's just right back inside. So after you do that little exercise, then I would set a timer for 30 minutes. And every 30 minutes, I would take him over, let him ring the bells, go outside, come back in. This way, once again, you're getting a lot of repetitions, as well as you're staying ahead of his routine, basically. You're not going to give him the opportunity to have an accident because he's going to be going out constantly. And I would do this for bare minimum 24 hours. After that, you can start to lengthen it, go to 45 minutes, go to an hour to 2 hours. Our standard is 2 hours that every dog should be able to go home and hold themselves without needing a break. However, well, I know that he can surpass that. However, don't let him. So do not go over 2 hours the first 2 to 4 weeks. That way, once again, you just don't give him the opportunity to have an accident. The other thing is use the crate as an asset. If you cannot give him the attention or you're getting tired of taking him out every 30 minutes, put him in the crate. He'll be fine to be in there. That's your biggest asset. And you have to give him 100% supervision when he's out, and so you can't give him the supervision, put him in the crate. And he'll be fine. He loves this crate. So, also just look for signs that he's got to go. If he starts sniffing real heavily, if he starts spinning in circles, or if he even just kind of walks over to the door and looks back at you. Those are times that he might need to go, and you can help him go, have him ring the bell, and then go outside. Also, he generally goes within about an hour after eating, and within minutes of waking up, after he's been asleep for a while. But he's done wonderfully. If you do need any help or you have any questions with this, don't hesitate to give me a call, and I'll help you the best that we can. For the most part, honestly, if you go through this little exercise, you won't have any issues. You can just stay ahead of his schedule, make sure you give him 100% supervision, and target the bell. Also, after the first 2 days, I would stop treating him for ringing the bell. Only give him a treat when he actually goes to the bathroom. So, yeah, let me know if you do have any questions. If not, no worries. But we are going to move on now. We're going to talk about his leash work. So we take him on 2 different types of walks. I briefly mentioned the first, and that's a long lead or an off-leash walk. And we take him on those at least once a week just to be a dog. And so until he's really responding with the come command, I'll keep him on a long leash. And I'm just going to let him run around and be a dog. He can play, he can sniff, he can just run around, and then every minute or two I'll call him to come just to give him a treat and let him go again. So you're working on the come command as well as he's checking in. After he's responding really well to that come command, you can then start taking him on off-leash walks. And then the next type of walk is our attention walk, and that's more so if you're out in public. And I want him to walk by my side with a nice loose leash. And we do have 2 commands there. The first is let's go, just signifying we're leaving, as well as I'll tell him that at corners. And then easy if he starts to pull. And so we're actually going to go outside, and I will show you that walk. So I do like to start this walk with a sit, which he might not because the ground's a little wet. But that way I do get his focus. Good boy. Good boy. And I want you just to pay attention to the way that he reacts with me when he periodically looks up, as well as the loose leash when we walk. And so I'll just walk back and forth here. Let's go. Let's go. Nice J shape in the leash. Okay. Periodically I'll give him a treat when he looks up at me. Let's go. And then if he gets too far in front of me, or if he starts to pull, I can tell him easy. And I expect him to put the slack back in the leash. And then when we stop, I like to have him sit. Good boy, okay. Nope. Sit. Good boy. Then I can just tell him, let's go. Let's go. But he's a great dog. I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy him. If you do have any questions, let me know. Thanks.